And he forbade the Irish men to wear their long hair in their tribal styles. And this is the Irish style, shaved above the ears, a big long moustache, maybe not so much of a beard. So there's a conflict going on, because what's happened in Europe is that Charlemagne has gone up to the Saxons. He said, remember, he's just defended himself against the Islamic invasion, and convert or die starts to be a part of religion in Europe. So he's just defended himself against Islam, and now he is going up to the pagans and he's saying, ye Saxons, if you don't submit, it's a question of convert or die. And he massacred a lot of them up there. And you start to see the Vikings start to take a reaction against the Christian world, starting to raid down into Britain and Ireland. And so we've got a problem all of a sudden, because our bishops are appointed not by the Pope, but by our local king. And we don't pay money to Rome. In fact, we've got a bit of a problem, because we're not actually acknowledged by these guys who are saying convert or die. So Cormac O'Quillinan says, we better sort this out. I'm modernising the Irish church and making it formal, so it's right. So he went up to Connacht with an army, and he took Clonmacnoise, and he imposed the law of the clerics on the Connacht men and its taxes. And happy with that, he took on the Leinster men, so that this new formal Christianity would be established all the way across Ireland, and the Irish men would cut their hair, and we'd all look right and classical and normal. But so that's the battle which was ahead. But the Leinster men said, no, we're not accepting that. And they called on the Ulstermen, and they came down, and at Ballymugna in County Kildare they met. And there Cormac O'Quillinan fell. He was beheaded in the old Celtic style. And you see on the caption going home, after him losing the battle, along with 6,000 men, which is probably inflated, and fighting monks. You see the caption on the high cross of Cormac O'Quillinan, his body laid out over a pony, his head in a bag on the end of a rod, with a man walking in front of the pony. And the very last thing to follow the little procession is Cormac O'Quillinan's little dog, following after his slain master. And the beauty of that little bit of art and the story in just carved stone is such a wonderful thing in the high crosses. But that's the story of Cormac O'Quillinan, 907 AD. But the beautiful thing about it was that us kin-based clansmen of Ireland got Christian men got to keep our long hair for another 200 or 300 years until the establishment of the Normans and that whole era. But I want to finish by saying one thing to you, and if anybody's telling me wind it up, I'll wind it up quick, but I have to tell you this one. The bit of I'm going to get back up on the chariot for this. The bit of Irish history that we hear least of, and the bit that I'd like to tell you the most of, is Niall of the Nine Hostages. So these chariots, why we took these chariots on as our icon of our culture. There are 6 chariots on the high crosses of Ireland. The Tone is full of them. So this was a contrast with the Roman world. You can see we're always trying to compare ourselves to some degree to the classical world, who are sometimes our friends, sometimes our enemies, but we are not civic people. We are not empire people, we're clan-based people. And this piece of civilization, this is the image of our culture and our identity, you know, and this is our technology that we do so well. So Cuchulainn was a chariot warrior, and at a time when the Roman world, well, later on Niall of the Nine Hostages was at a time when the Roman world had collapsed. And this is a bit of Irish history that we hear the least of. And this is what I want to talk about. Did you ever hear of Athy, son of Fiachra, King of all Ireland and King of the world? You didn't, because nobody told it to you. Athy, son of Fiachra, was a descendant of Niall of the Nine Hostages. And Irish kings at this time didn't die fighting in Ireland. They didn't even die fighting in Britain. They died fighting in Gaul. And Athy died crossing the Alps. So why haven't we heard about these kings? Why haven't we heard of Murdoch MacAirca, who was a British king? He was an Irish king who had a kingdom in Britain, who established his kingdom against the Franks in 535 AD, according to the Irish chroniclers. It's because we don't know, or we're not taught about the Gaelic resurgence, the Celtic resurgence of the 4th and 5th century following the fall of Rome. Niall of the Nine Hostages who were the Nine Hostages? They were his alliance that he went to Gaul with, because at this time the Visigoths and the Franks were fighting for control of the whole of Europe, and the only part of Europe that doesn't change hands is Western Gaul, Britain and Ireland, because they're under the control of this alliance. So who was Niall of the Nine Hostages? His hostages were the 4 kingdoms of Ireland, the Picts, the Britons, the Saxons, the Franks and the Gauls. And that's the alliance they're fighting with in France. And if you go into, there's one great bit of internet, which is the University of Cork's Celt website, where they've translated all the ancient Irish texts into English so we can read them. And they tell a story that you wouldn't recognize. Because if you believe that the Saxons invaded Britain following the Romans' exit, you won't understand this story. Because it's a completely different story to what Oxford and Cambridge tells us. In fact, it's actually a completely different story to what the Saxon Chronicles tell us, because the Saxon Chronicles tell us that the Saxons weren't even in Britain when the Romans left, that they didn't even arrive till 50 years after they've gone, that they didn't have any control to any significant degree in southern Britain till 200 years after they'd left, that they only took control of England about 900 AD. So why does Oxford and Cambridge try to promote that narrative of something which even the Saxons say isn't true? It's because they want to, well, let's say, I won't say why, I'll say it makes it very difficult for us to project the Irish narrative onto that time. The Irish narrative is that the Irish had kingdoms in Britain, that they had an alliances where the Britons were their under-kings, where they were going into Gaul and taking back control of Western Europe, because Celtic culture was all the way from Turkey to Ireland before the Romans arrived. When the Britons and the Gauls became Romanized, they forgot their chariot culture. They didn't drive chariots anymore. It was only the Scots and the Irish that did it, because we weren't under Roman control. So what you see when Rome falls is that a re-Celticization of this part of the world. And this is a sad thing, when empire takes over a place, it leaves the people without power. It leaves them without their structures of organisation. And we, as the Irish, have had times when we didn't have structure, but we were able to build on the clan culture. Even the parish culture, we were able to build up our power. And clan culture was also all of a sudden very powerful now the Romans had left. We could pull together our resources and make armies, dominate and take over other places, bring them into our system, and they would be protected within it. And we would take control and have some measure of civilization. So if I was to leave you with anything today, it is that story. The story, and I think that we need to tell these stories. The stories of Cuchulainn. The reason, you probably all know what a Viking looks like. You probably know what a Roman soldier looks like. You know what a redcoat looks like, but you don't know what an Irish cavalryman looks like, because you haven't seen this imagery before, But there they are. There he is. You don't see the imagery of the Gael even on Irish TV. We don't tell the story. Where is the movie of Cuchulainn? Where is the movie of St. Patrick? Where is the story of Niall of the Nine Hostages? Where's the story of Brian Boru? Hugh O'Neill? Owen Rowan O'Neill. A better man than Braveheart. Won more battles against superior forces than William Wallace. These are great stories which we have been afraid to take hold of. And I believe it's because we are afraid to challenge the narrative. The narrative of that all civilization comes from the East. So these are things that I would like to see us take ahead, as perhaps we do get resources and control, and we do promote our own culture and identity. These are things we have to do to create strength and to create the kind of bodies which will carry us forward. So I think I'll finish up on that. I don't think there's a whole lot more I can say, but thanks very much for listening. I wish I had the ponies here, but we made a good decision. We made a good decision not to bring the ponies today, not to see this charging around with Fergal up on the back as Cuchulainn and me driving them around the front. Apart from that, when I got up today, one of the ponies was actually lame. So there was nothing we could. It was meant to be, So thanks very much. If you want to talk about this, I'll talk to you privately. Well done, guys, and thanks for listening.
What time in there might we have, wasn't it?
Yeah.